Okay.
Growing up,
Hi.
hello, lovely people, welcome. Growing up, I've known China before even coming to China. I've known China to be one of the complex countries because we thought life in China was so difficult. We didn't know about the laws about China. After coming to China in 2018 and living in China, having experience, I realized that we knew something different from the reality. So that is why today we have our special guest, Edgar. He is a lawyer in China, a Chinese lawyer who is coming to explain to us what is really about China and their laws, most especially for foreigners who are thinking of investing in China, foreigners who are thinking of living in China, and anything to do with China. As we know, China is one of the business hub in the world, and most people are looking at investing in China, but they are worried about the laws in China. That is why we have our handsome special guest, lawyer Edgar. Dear lawyer, you're welcome.
Hi, guys. Edgar here.
Wow, cool. Who is lawyer Edgar?
Okay, so a bit of background about myself is I studied law around 10 years ago in Shanghai at
Okay.
Fudan University. And after I graduated, I came to Shenzhen to
Yes.
first become a trainee lawyer. Okay, and I what really picked up the speed in my career was when COVID came. So when
Yes.
COVID came, I wrote some articles about salaries during COVID period, and
Yes.
my third article, I remember really clearly. So my first article was about general topics about the coronavirus, and then the
Yes.
second article, that first article got 3 to 4 thousand views, okay,
Wow.
and the second article got even more, got 8,000. Then I noticed that people really wanted to know about whether they were getting paid during
Yes.
COVID. So I
COVID time.
yeah, so I went with one article about how salaries should be paid during COVID period, and that article went boom, got over 50,000 views, and it
Wow.
was that night that made me really popular, really that popular of the expat community, and a lot of people added me. They entered my Law in a Minute groups, which I have over 50 of them now, each with over 300 foreigners. So I have a small
Wow.
community running right now. Right. So that's what really propped up the fame for me. It was in 2020. So
Mm.
after that, I discovered my initial practice was not really for foreigners in China. It was just
Yes.
normal Chinese disputes. Okay. Then it was
Yes.
after that, then I got famous in the expat community. Then I was like, okay, I think I should maybe focus on this community because I don't see many English speaking lawyers around in China. So
Yes.
it appears that it's either foreigners in China who got a maybe studied 1 to 2 years of law and then they're trying to advise expats. So I
Yeah.
discovered that that there doesn't seem to be too much competition in this area. So why not give this a try? And since I've now after that article, I had 1,000 people adding me on WeChat. I was like, okay, these are all potential customers. Why not give this a try? So then I
Yeah.
went into the expat community and I started entering more and more WeChat groups. More and more foreigners started knowing about me. Then it was at the start of COVID, I basically
Yeah.
just gave advice for free because I was stuck at home. Okay, I had nothing
Yeah.
to do. There was no work. Yeah,
Yeah.
um, all the offices were closed, and I was stuck in Hong Kong, so nothing to do.
Yes.
So why not reply to legal questions for free and see what happens? So I did that for 3 months, and people really liked me because I gave a lot of free advice. And based
Yeah.
on the questions people asked, I wrote even better articles. So
Wow.
because that those articles really targeted the real
Yes.
problems that people were having, that expats
Yeah.
were having, more specifically. So
Wow.
that's right. So after
Interesting.
COVID, we started taking on foreigner labor cases because most of the problems that people are facing in China are labor issues. To be honest with you, labor
Okay.
issues. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Interesting. So therefore, you specialize in helping foreigners, educate foreigners in terms of law from 2020 till
That's
now.
right. That's right.
Yes. Interesting. To our viewers who are watching live today, we have one Chinese lawyer who is here to explain to us some of the basic laws you should know as a foreigner, whether you want to live, invest, or whatever you want to do with China. I personally, before coming to China, I heard several things about China, and it kept me scared. And I'm sure there are several people who are also scared because of the news they hear about China and the laws and stuff. What are some of the basic laws every foreigner must know before coming to China?
Okay, I think the most important laws foreigners must know before coming to China is the laws around visas. Okay, I
Okay.
see a lot of foreigners getting in trouble because of the laws regarding visas here. They either overstay without knowing what happened. Okay, they either overstay or
Yeah.
um, they get um, they get frauded by their employees because they don't know the laws around working illegally in China. So I would say it's
Okay.
mostly labor law and visa laws. Okay. So let's
Wow.
talk about, let's go a bit deeper maybe into visa laws, shall we?
Yeah,
Or
I want to write these things down. So the most important is visa laws. How do
yes.
people, yeah, what are the basic laws in terms of visa laws must a foreigner know?
So the first thing that a lot of people they make mistakes is if you are on any type of, let's get into more deeper legal concepts here. Okay, so
Yeah.
visa is a broad concept, and then we go deeper into, say, exit entry administration laws. Okay, exit entry means the laws that govern like how you enter or leave China or stay in China. So
Yes.
you can come into China by a few visas. The business visa, if you want to visit, let's say, a factory here. You've got the
Yeah.
student visa if you want to study in China. You've got the reunion visa if you've got family in China.
Married.
Maybe your
Yeah.
wife, your husband is Chinese, your son is Chinese, your parents are Chinese. You get a reunion visa. Or maybe
Yeah.
your wife is not a Chinese, but he or she is working in China legally.
Yeah.
Legally.
Yes.
Okay. And then we have the cabin crew visa, but that's not important. Okay. I'm just going to focus on these three visas. So the
Yes.
only type of visa that you can work in China on is called a work visa. Okay. So
Work
apart from
visa.
this visa, if you have a entrepreneur visa, you can't work in China. You have a student visa, you can't work in
Yeah.
China. You've got a business visa, you can't work in China. But a lot of people don't know this, especially before
Oh.
COVID came. So a lot of people, they worked part-time as a student, maybe teaching
Yeah.
English or teaching some
Yes.
kind of thing. And that's actually illegal. And when the exit entry administration officer comes along for routine checks, they get in trouble. They get fined and they get detained and maybe even deported for working illegally. So
Yeah.
learning like how to work legally in China is the only way is to get a work visa and then switch to a work permit when you actually enter China. Okay, you must have a
Wow.
work permit. Without the
Before
work
you,
permit, it's
yeah.
illegal. Yeah.
Wow. With this basic visa, only work visa can make you work in China. We have one of our viewer who is watching live. He said, "Could Edgar help me move to China to live from the UK? Maybe I could live with him or something."
I think it's a joke question. Yeah.
Anyways, I'm happy he's watching live. So yeah, we can continue. You said only work visa can make you work in China. But I know there's this company visa where people start their company. Then they have this visa and stuff. That one too, does it permit someone to work?
Again, the only visa you can work is the work permit, okay? Work visa and then work permit. So if you're
Okay.
a business owner with an entrepreneur visa, you can't work on that visa because it doesn't say work. Okay, it's really easy to understand. You can
Yeah.
only work with the work permit. work visa. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Interesting. I really want to understand this. So, meaning if I want to start a company in China, then I have to get a work permit before I can work, even though I have a company.
That's right. That's right. But you can hire yourself as the general manager or the director as the company, and you can get yourself a
Oh,
work permit. You can hire yourself.
all right. Interested. I need to understand certain things before I let you continue. So we can continue from where you ended about work. Yeah, the work visa.
Right. So let's talk a little bit about getting the work permit as a business owner. So
Yeah.
basically, once you have established your company in China, let's say you're somebody who wants to invest in China.
Yes.
Let's say the trading industry, okay, because many people in China they want to buy things from China and sell it in their home country, and a lot of my clients do that kind of thing. So
Yes.
basically, let's say we have this African entrepreneur, okay, called and he wants to enter China. So he first applies for, say, a tourist or a business visa, and that allows him to stay in China for 3 months if he's on a business visa. So 3 months is more than
Yeah.
enough for him to register his company in China, and open up a bank account and a import-export license, especially if he's in the trading business. So after he
Yeah.
gets the correct documents, which is mostly the business license, and opens up his bank account, he can start applying for his work permit. Okay, and how he does that is he logs on to the work permit, the Foreign Export Bureau website.
Yes.
Okay, which he might need some help with the Chinese for, because it's only in Chinese. Okay, it's only in
Yeah.
Chinese, so he needs help. So with that system, he has to make an account, log in as the business owner, and then he can apply for a work permit for a foreigner, which is himself. And
Yes.
he'll have to fill in some forms like his bachelor's degree has to be notarized and authenticated. He has to get a non-criminal record for his own country. He has to get a medical check to make sure that he's healthy, right? He
Yeah.
has to be healthy. He can't, yeah. So he needs his degrees notarized. He needs medical checked up, and a lot of paperwork, basically. So I would recommend getting a Chinese buddy or somebody who knows what he's doing, or else you're going to waste a lot of time. Because the way to get things notarized is to visit the Chinese embassy in your own country. Okay, so let's say
Oh,
you've got
okay.
a bachelor's degree from England, then you're going to visit the Chinese embassy in the UK, okay, to get
Yeah.
the bachelor's degree notarized. So you need at least 2 years of work experience, usually speaking, in the industry. If you would like to be a say translator, okay, translate from
Yeah.
Afrikaans to English, and you would like to
Yeah.
open a translation company, just for example. So you need 2 years
Yeah.
of experience in that area. So how do you prove that? You need
Yeah.
your old employer to give you a stamped work experience letter that says you've been working in this industry for 2 years.
Yeah.
Okay, so you need
Yeah.
work experience, you need a bachelor's degree, you need medical checkups, lots of stuff basically, and all of these have to be taken to the embassy to be notarized and authenticated before you can apply for a work permit. Okay, so
Wow.
but this is the simplified version. Okay, for the complicated version, we can talk about that later. That's gonna take forever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Sure. So if somebody is outside China and they want to do all these processes, I don't know, do you do this kind of services
Of course,
yourself?
certainly, we've helped also African clients from Madagascar set up their company in Guangzhou, and we've
Yeah.
also had European clients.
Wow. Interesting. That's good. So what are the legal systems in China that protects foreign investors and businesses?
For foreign investors and businesses, basically Chinese law gives them the same status as Chinese investors. So
Okay.
the same level of protection is granted, basically. So I think this is very important because Chinese law does not discriminate foreigners, and we've got IP laws that provides corporate theft. Let's say let's say Volvo wants to invest in China, and you know that
Yeah.
Geely bought Volvo, okay, around a
Yeah.
few years ago, 10 years ago. So the Chinese IP law protects Volvo's trade secrets, like how they make their engines and their cars, this kind of
Yeah.
confidential information from being stolen by the
Yeah.
Chinese company.
Wow. Interesting. So foreigners, investors should not be worried, because when you are outside China, we hear something different. And I think most people are mostly scared about these kind of laws. Like, are they really safe to come to China? Me personally, from my experience, what I know is the government can just let you leave the country anytime. You can be told to leave the country anytime and everything. But I'm glad you have explained that there are legal laws that can protect every investor or every worker in China. Wow, that is so interesting. Now, if we talk about your experience from 2020 to now, what are the basic some laws that you think every foreigner should know? The most cases and the basic laws you think every foreigner should know?
Okay, so I think we should go back to a bit of labor law here, because
Okay.
from statistics, okay, I'll just show you some stats. Well, most foreigners who come to
Yeah.
China basically work in China, okay?
Yeah.
So they come here to get employed, and either as English teaching, translation,
Yeah.
dance teacher. But most of it is English teaching, but I would say teaching work would take
Yeah.
up over a half of people who are working in China. Then we
Yeah.
have people in the F&B industry, chefs. Okay, lots of chefs in China. And then we
Yes.
have engineers and software engineers, technical engineers. Okay,
Yeah.
and anyway, so most foreigners who are in China have are here to be employed. So I think that employment law should be what we should be focusing on, because
Yeah.
I've seen really a lot of employers get frauded by their employers because they don't know the law. Because they don't know the
Yeah.
law. So going down to employment law, I see a lot of foreigners getting in trouble when they want to leave their job. So I want to talk a little bit more about leaving your job.
Okay.
Your employer might have a clause in your contract that says, since we have put a lot of effort and time into getting you into China from another country, so
Yeah.
if you leave before the contract ends, we would deem this as a breach of contract. And if you breach the contract, we'll have to fine you. Let's say a month
Yeah.
of your salary, 2 months of your salary, 3 months of your salary. Okay, and these numbers may just go rocket high. Okay,
Yeah.
so well, employers will give you a lot of trouble when you want to leave your job because they think that they had a lot of effort into getting you into China. And now you want to leave just after,
Yeah.
let's say, finishing half your contract. You can't leave, right? So,
Yes.
but these employees might be mistreated and they might hate their job. So they want to leave. So law actually states that to leave your
Yeah.
employee, you only have to give a 30-day notice, okay? And written notice. You just got to hand in a resignation letter and you're free to go. But unfortunately, in real life, it is much more complicated than this. And this kind of problem takes around 50% of the labor cases that my team takes. Over
Wow.
half of the cases we take, labor cases, are involved
Yeah.
with this problem. So I'll tell you a bit more like why we have this problem. So when a
Yeah.
expat wants to leave his current employer and find a new employer, he needs to
Yeah.
first get his employer to log into the foreign expert system that I mentioned a bit earlier, right? They have to first
Wait.
log into that system.
Wait. I want to understand some factors here. You said before the person even submit their resignation letter, they have to log in into what?
Oh, let me be a bit more clear here. It's
Yeah.
not related to resignation, okay?
Okay.
I would rephrase it and say, if an employee would like to transfer from one employer to another employer, these are the steps. So let's kick resignation off the table first, okay? And let's just focus on the administrative government procedures, okay?
Yeah.
So the government requires the current work permit, which is a small card that looks like this, like an identity card, okay? Has your face on it, has your name on it, and it has a QR code on it. When you scan the QR code, it shows your face, your passport number, but not all the numbers, okay? Half of it's spotted out for privacy. And it shows how long this work permit is valid for, okay? So you need to first cancel the existing work permit. And then you have to also cancel your residence permit, which people always think is the visa, okay? But the correct term is residence permit. The residence permit is a page on your passport, okay? It will take up a whole page, and it has also an expiry date in it. But the correct name is the residence permit, not the visa, okay? So they will have to cancel the work permit and the residence permit, and then they'll have to apply for a 30-day stay permit.
Wow, interesting. Are you saying that there's difference between visa and work resident permit?
That's right. The difference is the visa is what you use to enter China, and it's for one use only. After you enter China, you no longer use the visa. You put yourself on a residence permit. The visa only allows you to enter China, but it does not allow you to work in China. Okay? So it only allows you to stay in China for, say, 30 days. Okay, that's for, let's say, the work visa, for example. Business visa, 30 days. Business visa, 90 days, maybe. Tourist visa, 30 days. Each visa has a different duration of stay.
Wow, interesting. So you said they should have to cancel that. Is it before their resident permit expires?
That's right. That's right.
What time? What actual time are they supposed to start that process?
Within 10 days after your work permit is canceled. So how do you know if your work permit is canceled? You can scan the QR code that is on the work permit card and scroll down, and it will show a date. Okay, if the date disappears, then it means it's canceled. It's replaced with 3 Chinese letters, then it's canceled. But usually your employer will inform you, okay, that it's canceled, and you have to go to the exit entry administration, okay, to get your residence permit also canceled.
Oh, wow. Interesting. So that should be done 3 months before your resident permit is about to expire.
Can you ask this again?
What time must they cancel the resident permit?
What time must you cancel your residence permit? You have to cancel it within 10 days of the cancellation of your work permit.
Okay. 10 days.
10 days.
Interesting. Okay, now I understand this now. So after they've canceled, then they have to go to the exit
entry administration. Of the Public Security Bureau. In short, police station. Okay, you go to the immigration police. People just call it immigration police. Okay. Yeah, because it's easier to understand.
Wow. Yeah, so they go there, then they cancel. After they cancel, meaning they are not allowed to work. They are not allowed to stay in China legal because it's canceled.
That's right. So that is why once you cancel your existing residence permit, you can apply at the same time for a 30-day stay permit. So this 30-day stay permit, also called the T visa, because there's a T on it. Okay, so people also call it T visa, or they also call it a humanitarian visa. Okay, it's got many names, but the correct name for it is the stay permit. Okay, but just for simplicity's sake, let's just call it the stay permit. And it allows you to stay for 30 days in China. And within these 30 days, you have to apply for a new work permit under your new
Yeah.
employer. And it usually can be done within 30 days. Okay? So this 30 days is more
Oh,
than enough for you to apply for a new work permit under a new employer. And once you get your new work permit, you can
yeah.
also apply for a new residence permit. And with these two documents, the work permit and the residence permit, you can work legally in China. Again, under a new employer.
Wow, interesting. I'm glad you have explained everything very clear. I've seen several cases where employees get challenged with their employers. So
Right.
when they are trying to change to another employer, they have cases where they seize their passport or something like that. I don't know if you've had cases like that.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, so
How? Yeah.
when you let's talk about seizing the passport first. So when
Yes.
you cancel your residence permit, let me
Yeah.
explain a bit more here. Your residence permit is on your passport. So you've got to give
Yes.
your passport to the immigration police, okay? In simple terms, give it to the immigration police, the Exit
Yeah.
Entry Administration, EEA, okay?
Yeah.
So, but a lot of employers will say, okay, just give it to me, I'll give it to the EEA for you, and then they'll lie to them. So,
Yes.
and that's where things get muddled up. So, the employer will take your passport and just say, okay, now I have your passport, so you better pay me some money, or or you're not leaving the country, my friend. So
Yeah.
the story, I mean the the general rule of thumb is you should hand your passport to the immigration yourself, not give it to an employer.
Okay.
Don't trust your employer with important documents like this.
Wow. Interesting. So, as you said, you have been mentioning most foreigners do not know the laws. I think
Right.
if most of us know the laws, we will not go through these several challenges that we go through. Because I know most of the times the employees that they want to leave always scare them. Yes, I have your passport and you cannot do this, you cannot do that. How do foreigners have a close gap between them and the law? Because I remember before coming to China, I never read any law about China. No, I never. I only asked other friends in China and they told me their experience and stories, and that was all. How do we get access to the laws in China or of China?
Okay, so I'm gonna do a bit of self promotion here. So you can go to my Facebook page, which is
Yeah.
Law in a Minute. Just search Law in a
Okay.
Minute, and you'll land on my Facebook page, where you can watch videos on Chinese law, educate yourself. Or you can go to my website,
Yeah.
lawinamin.com, and you can also read legal articles and watch videos on Chinese law. And if you want to read the laws yourself,
Yeah.
basically you go to the Chinese government website, but not all laws have English translations, so that's where the problem usually kicks in. So
Yeah.
only around, I would say, less than 50% of the laws in China are translated in English. So that's why people have a lot of trouble
Yes.
learning about the law. And the thing about Chinese law is it's complicated in a way that there's the main laws, and then there are lots of interpretations of the law. So if you just
Okay.
read the main law, it's not good enough. Okay, it only
Okay.
gives you half the picture. You've also got to understand the interpretations, and then the laws of the provinces, because China is a big country. Each
Yeah.
province has a slightly different variation on specific laws. So
Yeah.
you've also got to read the provincial laws. And then you've got to read the department laws of, say, the Labor Bureau, because the Labor Bureau also has even more explanation on the law itself. Okay? So you've got to read
Yeah.
all these laws to get a full picture of what's happening. If you just read one of them, then you only get 50%. And it won't be enough, to be honest. Yeah.
Wow. Interesting. So you mentioned that there's a very bridge gap because of language barrier. And
Right.
I'm glad with your platform and website, most of them are translated in English. I want to know, and I will be happy to hear that so far you have translated all the laws in English now.
No, I haven't done that. What I've done is I've rewritten the laws in a simple way, so normal everyday people can understand. And obviously, I haven't written all the laws because that's just gonna take forever. All the laws in China combined, even a truck wouldn't wouldn't even wouldn't even work. And a lot of laws aren't really necessary for you to learn. Okay, you just gotta understand the laws that you can touch every day, like
Yeah.
right. So learning
Yeah.
about criminal law on killing a person, I don't think that really helps you, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Wow, interesting. So therefore, I'll be putting a link of your pages in the description box where our viewers who will be watching recorded can reach you, get access to these laws. And I'll be making separate videos about this where people can get access to the laws. Because I can't
Right.
believe I've been in China for 6 years now, and I don't remember reading any law about China, even for a foreigner living in a different country. And I think that is very, very important. Now, the issue about work visa, the process, I don't know if you are done or with all the process about the labor law cases you have had, the challenges foreigners mostly face before I ask any question.
Yeah, let me finish on that first. So,
Yeah,
going back to now that you've understand, you've got to cancel your work permit and your residence permit in order for you to find a new employer. So apart
yeah,
from this, you also need something called a release letter from your employer and a
really,
cancellation letter, which is granted after your work permit is cancelled. You need these two documents usually when you want to
yeah,
find a new employer in China. So, simply put, if your employer refuses to give these documents to you and
yeah,
helps you transfer your work permit to a new employer, you're out of luck, my friend. You're stuck. You're just out of luck. And your employer knows that as well. So that's where they will try and keep you hostage by refusing to give you these
yeah,
letters and refusing to cancel your work permit and ask for a nice sum of money
yeah,
in exchange for these documents. So obviously this is illegal, but it's done a lot of time because
yeah,
it's quite unfortunate. Okay, because many people don't really care about the law. Okay, so
yeah,
and when this happens, you will have to save yourself by hiring a lawyer to deal with your employer. Okay, so
yeah.
that is where
Wow.
things get complicated.
Well, you mentioned two documents. You said release letter and what?
Cancellation letter.
Cancellation letter. So every employee have the right to get these documents.
That's right. It's actually written in labor law that the employer must give the employee a release letter when he leaves the company. It's actually written in the law. But
Wow.
of course, employers will um, defy the law in order to get
Yeah.
money from you or make a transfer difficult.
Yeah. And I know there are so many instances where people have had these cases. For example, if I have a case like this where the employer is not willing to give me these documents, what must I do?
The first thing is not to get into this kind of trouble in the first place. Let's talk first about prevention, okay? It's always
Okay.
better than taking
Yeah.
action. So prevention wise, you want to do a bit of basic research before entering a relationship with your employer. You should ask your foreigner friends on
Yeah.
foreigner groups and say, hey, who's worked at this company before and what do you think about this company? Okay,
Yeah.
so first do some research. And number two, stay away from all agencies. All, okay? All agencies. Do not get hired under an agency where they dispatch you to different schools to work. Stay away from all of them, okay? This is a clear
Yeah.
cut rule, okay? I'm not going to name any names here, but
Yes.
just stay away from all agencies,
Yes.
okay? The reason is agencies make money off buying you, paying you a lesser salary, and selling you to employers for more salary. For example, they will pay you, say, 12,000 per month and sell you off to an employee for 20,000 per month. So of course, for them, the longer you work for this employer, the better. So they will make hell for you if you want to leave, because you're basically taking their money away from them.
Yeah.
Okay, you're a cash cow, friend. So stay away from all agencies. They're selling you.
Yeah.
That's right.
Before I even allow you to continue, you are saying we should stay away from agencies. But how do we get these jobs? It is these agencies who provide these jobs, mostly in China. How can somebody who is not in China even get direct contact to the direct employer instead of agencies?
There are two types of agencies. The first type of agency will hire you directly under their company and then send you to an employer to work. So you'll be signing a contract with the agency directly. So you can find out easily by asking them to send you the contract. And in the contract, it will say, oh, for example, we will dispatch you to a BPO school or whatever school. The terms dispatch will be used. Okay, so you need to read the contract carefully. If it says dispatch and the name says something like human resources, agency, if the name hints of something like that, it means that you're signing with the agency directly. And that's basically that's the clear cut of no, do not touch these agencies. Okay?
Yeah.
And the second type of agency is a headhunter. And these are the good types. They will only charge the employer. Okay? So they will just charge, say, half a month or 1 month of your salary directly from your employer as a one-off fee. Just like a real estate agent. If you want to rent an apartment, you find an agent. The agent will charge the landlord half a month's rent and you half a month's rent, a one-off fee to give you a deal. And this type of agent is fine. Okay, so we got to distinguish between the headhunters and the dispatchment agencies.
Wow. You mentioned, thank you for explaining the types of agencies. Now, my problem is, how do foreigners who want maybe jobs or work in China get direct contact to agencies who are reliable, who will not be using them as headhunters in China? Because I feel like, from my experience, the agencies who we mostly found doing advertisement are people who use us to get more money. How do we get contact to these right agencies?
I would say do some research on Google, my friend, and contact many at once. Don't just talk with one, okay? Compare and contrast. And the real type of agency, the real type of agent, I shouldn't even use the word agency here. The real type of headhunting agents will give you a contract that puts you directly with the school that you want to work with the company that you want to work with. And it's pretty straightforward. It will have the word kindergarten, middle school, bilingual school, high school. It has the name directly there. So it's pretty simple and straightforward. So you should always do enough research before, and ask your friends, ask people who've worked in China and who are working in China. Go on Google, do some research. Okay?
Wow.
Check out the school's website before working there. Good schools will have a website, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, if it looks professional, it must be a good school. If it doesn't even have a website, it may not be such a professional school. Okay?
Wow. Interesting. So now you can still continue with the process where I interrupted. I don't know if you finished.
Yeah, so that is prevention. Okay, we talked about prevention. So the first step is to stay away, which is prevention, to stay away from dishonest people. Okay, so the second type of prevention you can take is to Read your contract very carefully. Does it have a breach penalty clause on it? Does it say if you want to leave early, you have to pay them? Does it
Okay.
say you have to give a semester notice before you want to leave? So that's all illegal clause. Okay, you gotta read the contract carefully for illegal
Yeah.
clauses. Okay, if you find
Yeah.
illegal clauses, it means that this employer disregards the law, and you shouldn't really be working with them, right?
Yes.
So you've got to really spend some time doing some homework before signing the contract. And obviously, if you can afford it, find a lawyer to go over the contract before you sign it. Since putting your name on a piece of paper actually does have legal effect, my friend. Okay? So
Putting what
mention,
name? Oh, signing the contract,
yeah,
right?
putting your name on a
Yeah.
contract, signing a contract. That's right.
Yeah.
So prevention is key. Okay? If
Yeah.
you do enough homework before entering a employment contract, 90% of your problems go away. And now let's move on to what happens if you've already stuck in a situation.
Yeah.
Okay.
Before you even move on to that, yeah, I really appreciate the fact that you mentioned get a lawyer to go through the contract. I think it's very, very important because probably you cannot have time to even learn all these laws. So it's very advisable to get a lawyer at the initial stage to go through everything. Then he can advise you because he knows the laws and everything. That is why we have our lawyer here. There's nothing like language barrier, and he is there to reach you anytime. Interesting. In case somebody is stuck, what should the person do?
Okay, so let's move on to the saving Private Ryan part. Okay, let's say you're already stuck with an
Yeah.
agency and they want 50,000 from you if you want to leave
Yeah.
your job. What should you do? Okay, so before even resigning, as in handing in your resignation letter, I would advise you to first have a meeting with them in person and telling them in person. Of course,
Yes.
making sure that it's not recorded. Okay, meet them
Yeah.
a in a public area where
Oh,
there's no CCTV. Okay, where there's no
yeah.
CCTV, and just ask them and say, "Hey, I have some family issues. I want to go back to my country. I want to resign. So what's the
Yeah.
procedure?" Ask them. If they say, "Okay, that's easy. We'll help you. Just resign and then we'll let you go." If the answer is a peaceful answer, then that's okay, and you can just go ahead with the 30-day resignation. But obviously, you
Yeah.
got to make sure that they're not lying. Okay, you ask your colleagues about anybody who has tried to leave before and what happened to them. Ask your
Yeah.
colleagues. Okay, ask
Yeah.
other teachers what has happened with people who've tried to leave in the past. Okay,
Yeah.
ask them first. And if the answer is hostile, like, "Oh, you can't leave until you finish this contract," if this is the answer, you
Yeah.
ask them, "So, what happens if I really have to leave? What is the condition for you to let me leave?"
Yes.
If their answer is, "Okay, you gotta pay us a few thousand," then in this case, you gotta balance between, is your new job gonna offer you enough money to cover this loss? If they're paying you double, pay them the few thousand and just go, right? Pay them
Wait.
the few thousand.
So are people are supposed to pay before they are released? Because you said legally they are supposed to release those letters and everything to allow the person to leave. Why
That's
must
right.
they pay?
Okay, why should they pay? To save
Yeah.
time and money. Okay, you've got to balance the cost of taking legal action, which is how much you're going to pay your lawyer, right? And
Yeah.
how much time you're going to waste in this process. Time is money, my friends. Time is money. If you waste 3 months in a legal battle with your employer, it means 3 months with no work and no income. And you lose 3 months of your salary doing nothing in this process. So you're
Yeah.
gonna, let's say you get paid 20,000 per month. You lose 20,000 to hire a lawyer. You lose 60,000 3 months being employed. So you lose
Yeah.
80,000 on this. doing nothing, right? So
Yes.
if the solution is a simple small fine, then you should weigh the consequences and the negativities before entering your solution. If paying them off means that you can get away scot-free
Yes.
really quickly, then sometimes paying them
Yeah.
is a better solution in a financial viewpoint. Okay,
Wow.
so moving on, if they
Yes.
want a really high fine, which I've seen in the past, they want to 60,000 or even more. Okay, yeah,
Yeah.
in Hangzhou. So if they want a really absurd amount of money, then obviously you're going to want to go down the legal route, which I'm going to explain now.
Yeah.
So the first thing you want to do is talk with your lawyer on what kind of clauses allow you to leave the contract immediately and get some kind of compensation from your employer. So the thing that is pretty miraculous with illegal employees is if they have no respect for the law, they will also breach other laws, which can be used to our advantage, right? So it's always
Yeah.
two sides of the coin. If an employer has no regard of the law, then they will also breach some laws that we can help ourselves with. So
Yeah.
one strategy that I've used now for 3 to 4 years already, and it has worked many times, every time in the past, is to
Yeah.
look for non-social insurance payments and illegal deductions in the past where you were working for this employer. Let me elaborate
Wait.
a little bit more
Wait.
here.
Yeah. May elaborate more.
Right.
Non-social what? Yeah.
So the Chinese law legally requires your employer to pay for your social insurance, or it can also be called social security. Okay, so
Okay.
this amount is around a few hundred kwai RMB that is paid from your side, and your
Yeah.
employer pays around 1.5 times of what you pay. So if you pay 400, your employer pays 800 or 600. Okay.
Yeah.
So a lot of employers, as I said, they don't care about the law. So they try and go cheap on everything. So obviously that means that they won't be paying for the social insurance either. And
Yes.
unluckily for them, and luckily for us, the law actually requires them to do so. And labor law, labor contract law, Article 38 says if an employer does not pay for social insurance, the employee can immediately terminate the contract without a 30-day notice, immediate effect, okay,
Yeah.
and leave the employer and sue them for severance pay. And what is severance pay? So severance pay is basically 1 month of your salary per year of working. If you've worked for, say, 3 years, you can sue them for 3 months of severance pay. So now is
Okay.
where we get to the crux of the situation. So if you find that your social insurance has not been paid, or if your wages have been illegally deducted in the past, you've got the right to immediately terminate the contract and sue them for
Oh.
severance pay. So
Wow.
this is a weapon
Interesting.
that we always use to fight against
Wait.
employers.
Wow. Before I allow you to proceed, so meaning sometimes, for example, when your employer make a mistake and pays you lesser than you agreed on, you can just use that against them.
That is right. And you can sue them for compensation.
Whoa.
That's
Interesting.
right. So,
Wow. Yeah.
yep. So basically speaking, illegal deductions might come in many forms. For example, if you're working overtime on rest days, say Saturdays and Sundays, and your employer is not paying you, that's an illegal deduction.
Oh, wait.
Because you're, yeah,
If you work overtime, that is illegal deduction. Interesting.
if you
So,
work overtime and you don't get paid for the overtime work, that is
wow.
considered as illegal deduction.
Oh,
Because you're
interesting.
entitled to these wages and your employer is not paying you. So of course it is an illegal deduction.
I didn't know
Yeah.
this, and I'm sure most people didn't know this. So, like, I'm just trying to imagine how will you prove evidence that I work overtime and was not paid?
The first method is to dig up schedules. So if you're working for a company, they'll show you like which days you have to go to work. So the schedule that they send to you is very important evidence that can be used against them. It explicitly shows how many hours you've got to be at work at, right?
Yeah.
So it's really easy to count overtime.
Wow.
And obviously, if you've got messages or emails from your boss saying, hey, we've got open day on Sunday, you have to come from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m., then that is evidence that can be used against them.
Wow. Interesting. I'm glad to be learning something new today. Wow.
That's
Okay,
right.
let's continue with the process.
So another very commonly seen type of illegal deduction is when you get deducted fines for, say, absence or being late. So a lot of people will get fined, say, for being late for 10 minutes, and the fine is, let's say, 100 yuan, 200 yuan. The law says that you can only be deducted for the portion of the time being late. So 100 yuan is probably an hour of your wages. So if they're deducting an hour of your wages for being 5 minutes late, that is also considered as an illegal deduction.
Whoa.
Right. And a lot of employers don't know that. And they think it's in their right to fine employees. Let's say for not clocking in, they'll fine you. For sleeping on the job, they'll fine you. For being late for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, they'll fine you. Yeah. If you go absent for half a day, they'll deduct, say, 3 days of salary. That's also an illegal deduction.
No.
And it's very common. It's very, very common. Okay?
Wow.
So we've got to find these errors or breaches in the law that your employer is making. And based on this kind of minor thing that they might have overlooked, we can fight them. Wow. So once we find these illegalities, we can move forward with terminating the contract immediately and notifying your employer to release you. And this is when we have to play a game of, say, poker. Okay, it's like a game of poker.
Yeah.
Yeah. You have to measure what kind of cards you have in hand before negotiating a release with your employer. So your employer holds your release letters in their hand, and you hold severance pay in your hand, and possible complaints against the Social Insurance Bureau. So it's time to trade cards. Okay? So you can talk to your employer and say, okay, I know that you're not willing to let me go, but now I have a claim against you. I've worked here for a year, so I'm entitled to 1 month of severance pay. I'm willing to use 1 month of my severance pay in exchange for my release letters. What do you think? So this is where the deal can be made. Okay?
Wow.
So this part basically solves another 30% of the issues that expats face in China. Okay? So if this doesn't solve the problem, we move on to the next step, which is official legal action. We usually apply for first something called labor supervision, which is filing a complaint at the Labor Supervision Brigade, which specifically tackles the release letter.
Yes.
And at the same time, you prepare for a labor arbitration case.
Wait, you are mentioning so many big words that I'm sure so many people will not get it. So if we want to apply for legal system, you said where should we do that?
Labor supervision or inspection. Okay, there are two terms for this. It's the same meaning, but two different translations. Okay, so the Labor Supervision or Inspection Bureau is a small brigade that specifically deals with small labor issues.
Yes.
For example, release letters. They will call your employer and visit them in person
Yeah.
to threaten them with the power of the government. And
Okay.
another quarter of employers will give up when they see the government breathing down their necks.
Wow.
Okay.
Interesting. Where can somebody even apply that?
So there's one brigade in every district, in every city.
Okay.
So you just gotta put in the correct Chinese characters on Baidu Maps or Gaoda Maps or any Chinese
Yes.
mapping app, and it'll lead you to the correct bureau.
Wow.
But you've got to bring a Chinese buddy with you because they don't speak English.
Interesting. And that is where they might need a lawyer as well.
Yes, you either hire a lawyer or you get a buddy to help you.
Wow, interesting. You mentioned some Chinese characters, which I would like you to maybe send to me after this discussion
Sure.
to put in the description box where people can search that.
Right?
Yeah. Okay. Wow. So after applying for that, then what next?
Okay. After applying for that, this thing has, say, a 50% chance of working. Some employers are afraid of the government, while some of them are not. So if they're not afraid of this officer, we'll have to move to a more formal process called labor arbitration. So labor arbitration is basically the labor tribunal or labor court. Okay, and this court is specifically designed for labor disputes. So it's a really formal thing. There's an arbitrator who acts as a judge, and you'll have to actually go to trial. So for this, you should 100% hire a lawyer because it's all conducted in Chinese, and you've got to prepare all your legal arguments and present them in front of the arbitrator. Okay, so you really need a lawyer for this. This is where a normal person will start to have trouble. Okay, will encounter difficulty.
Yes.
So the labor arbitrator is more powerful than the labor supervision brigade. Yes, because the labor arbitration committee can issue a verdict, which is a legally enforceable document that can be enforced by a court in China. But the labor supervision brigade can only harass your employer by threatening them and warning them and giving them fines.
Yeah.
Okay? So labor arbitration is the place that really gets things done if the problem is still not solved by this stage.
Wow, interesting. Then I think by the end of this process, everything should be solved. Yeah.
I wouldn't really say everything. I would say this is where 90% of the cases are solved. Okay, because in labor arbitration, half of them get settled. Basically, the employer knows that they're in trouble now because they have to actually hire a lawyer this time. And they're spending money. And the lawyer will also advise them that they're going to lose this case. It's a sure loser. And they'll have to pay you. So they will have the chance to come to Jesus, have a come to Jesus movement, and repent and settle with us. Okay?
Yeah.
But some of them are really resistant, what I've seen in 5% of the cases.
Wow.
They will appeal the case after they've lost to a higher court. And it's going to drag the case on for up to 6 to 9 months or even a year.
Wow. Interesting. Now, a foreigner is having a case. Thank you very much for explaining everything in detail. For example, a worker foreigner in China is having only 3 months for his resident permit to expire. And this case, it takes a long period of time. So, for example, in case somebody is in this situation and his resident permit has expired, what about the visa issue, like the resident permit? What must the person do during this process, long process?
To renew a permit actually is not that long of a process. It takes around 7 to 10 business days at most.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's say that you're working at this employer's and your work permit and residence permit is about to expire. Usually
Yes.
you apply for a renewal around 1 month before it expires. So you
Okay.
let your employer know. Say, hey, we're still on contract until 2026, but these permits are expiring now. So this is a reminder for you to renew it.
Yeah. Oh,
And
okay.
they're supposed to help you renew it.
Yeah. The reason why I'm asking this question is I know this humanitarian visa takes only 1 month. So, is there any laws that favors people like this? Does it mean that a person in this situation should always get humanitarian visa every month?
You usually only go on the humanitarian visa when you're trying to switch between jobs.
Okay.
Yeah. If you're under a contract, under
Yes.
normal contract that is not expired yet, you're supposed to apply for a new residence permit instead, which allows you to stay for 1 to 2 years or even up to
Yeah.
5 years, depending on how long your contract is and how long you've been staying in China for.
Yeah. Wow. Interesting. Lawyer Edgar, in fact, you have explained everything so well. If I intend to ask all the questions I want to ask, I don't think we'll finish today. So I'll just ask some few questions for us to end today's session, just about the labor laws. And in the future, with time, we'll have discussions about specific areas for foreigners. I think that will really, really help our audience and many people who are thinking of coming to China. In fact, you have
Right.
really explained everything well to us, and I must applaud you. You really helped me. I got a motor accident in 2022, and he really helped me save a lot of money. I met him on WeChat. I just met him on WeChat. I told him, and he was very open. He told me this, do this, and because of that, I was free. I was supposed to pay a lot of money. Wow. In fact, every foreigner in China needs a lawyer like you who doesn't have language barrier issue and knows all the laws to protect foreigners. Before we leave, you've mentioned about getting work visa and stuff. In the future, I'd like us to talk about students shifting from student visa to work visa. But
Right.
before then, I want to ask this case. I had a friend who got fined as a student. He was
Mhm.
working illegal and he was fined. Then he got an employer who wanted to employ him. Everything. The employer was ready to do work visa and every detail. But his resident permit got rejected. He wasn't granted a resident permit because, I don't know, probably they said because he was fined previously for working illegal.
That's right.
The question I want to ask is, does it mean any student who has been fined working illegal can never shift from student visa to work visa?
I wouldn't say 100%. Okay. Um, the thing you've got to understand is
Yes.
if you've got fined or detained or even given a warning in the
Yes.
past for working illegally or doing other illegal stuff in China, let's
Yes.
say drunk driving, fighting, prostitution,
Yes.
smoking weed, these are all things that foreigners might get in trouble for. Okay.
Yes.
Um, if you've got apprehended by the police and they make you sign your name on a piece of paper that says you are warned, you are fined, you are detained, you're deported, then it means that you have an administrative record. So this record is different from a criminal record because a criminal record means that you're a criminal. You're not a criminal. It's a minor offense, but it still means that once you have this administrative record, it gets submitted to the national level, So in the future, when anybody tries to apply for a residence permit for you, this record will come up on the police system. And the police can use this as a reason to reject you if they don't like you. It gives them a reason to reject you, but it doesn't 100% mean that they will reject you. Like if they find that you're important enough, if you're Elon Musk and you got caught smoking weed, and you still got to come to China to take care of Tesla, I think they'll waive it and still let you in. Okay? If they deem you important enough that you're making, let's say, great contributions to China, then they'll still let you in for administrative offenses. But if they think that they can go without you, or their city doesn't really need a foreigner, like, for example, if you go to very small cities and there are no foreigners there, and the government wants to promote the city as a foreigner city, they'll turn a blind eye. So it really depends on policies, local policies.
Wow, interesting. Thank you for explaining. But the example you gave makes me think that probably most people who want to shift from student visa to work visa are people who are not really needed by the government. And therefore, they will be rejected the resident permit, just like that, my friend who has left China.
But that's only if you have a previous illegal record. If you have a clean record, you'll be fine. They have no reason to reject you.
I mean, people with these cases where they have record.
And it also depends on what kind of job you're applying for. Like, if you're trying to enter the education industry, that's basically something that China is trying to shut down right now. Okay. China is targeting this industry. But if you say you want to be a doctor in China, you're a medical student, China needs doctors, so you get a free pass probably if you're trying to work in a hospital. So which industry also affects this? And also say maybe you're an engineer, right? So you might not be affected that much. If they really need a foreigner as an engineer in a local industry that the government is trying to support, let's say the chip industry, right? If you're a chip scientist that is really smart, they'll let this go. So it depends. Really depends on many factors.
Wow, interesting. Our dear lawyer Edgar, in fact, you are really not just a lawyer, but a lifesaver to many foreigners in China. And I am one of them. In 2022, you really helped me save money and save me out of a lot of stress. And that is why we have to applaud you for the good work you are doing for foreigners in China. Before we even leave, I'll be putting description of your handles in the description box where every foreigner can reach you. But I want you personally, where can foreigners reach you?
If you're inside China, you might want to reach me on WeChat. If you're not in China, you can talk to me on Facebook. If you don't have Facebook, you can send me an email.
Okay.
Or leave your contact details on my website, and I'll find you.
Wow, interesting. In fact, I have a lot of questions, and I know in the future more questions will be coming from our audience. So I must really applaud you for taking time, honoring this invite to come and explain these laws. And like proverbially Oliver Twist, we can't wait to ask for more in the future, to have you more in the future for us to discuss these laws that foreigners must know. And the next one in the future I would really love us to talk about is students shifting to work visa and students' life and these visas and all those things. We are so grateful, lawyer, for coming. Before we leave, you never mentioned your Chinese name to us. Is
Oh
Edgar
yeah.
a Chinese name?
So in the Mandarin pinyin, it's called Cai Wei Lu.
Tai Wei Lu.
Yep.
Oh, and why this name?
Actually, well, Cai is the surname, so that comes from my dad. No choice, right? And the last character Lu actually means law. So it actually means law. So my father is a lawyer, so and my mom really wanted me to be a lawyer when I grew up. So that's one of the reasons that the name law it's in my name.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow, interesting. I was about to ask that question, you answered. And why this English name, Edgar?
What is English name? So when
Yeah.
I was 3, I read a book called 101 Dalmatians. I don't know if that's pronounced correctly. The dogs, the white and the spotted dogs. Okay.
Yeah.
So I read that book, and the bad guy in the book was called Edgar. And I was like, hey, I want to be the bad guy. He seems cool.
Wow, interesting.
And
Lawyer
nobody's
Edgar.
using this name.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm so happy today you are not the bad guy, but you're a lifesaver to marry foreigners in China and foreigners who are thinking of coming to work or do anything with China in the future. That group is so grateful to have you as a special guest today, and we can't wait to have you in the future. And before we leave, I would like to remind our viewers this is the only live streaming podcast based in China, a podcast here to educate, entertain, and edify the world about China and foreigners who want to do anything with China. If you want to work, if you want to study, if you want to do business in China, then this platform is there for you. It will educate you about everything about China. Everything about China. And every week we make sure that we bring special guests who comes to either share their experience living in China, their mindset before coming to China, and people doing business, how they're doing in terms of business in China. And if you are thinking of investing in China, probably you can also start soon. We have a lot for you. That is why you must subscribe, follow all our platforms for more contents. Until we leave, lawyer, we need your last words before we leave.
Last words are okay. I've got a good one. Ignorance of the law is no excuse. Okay, and it is never a defense. So take the time, educate yourself on the basic laws, and stay trouble free in China.
Wow, that is so powerful. Ignorance of the law is no excuse. And that is why we'll end today's live session. See you next time. Bye bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye.